Metasurveillance, commonly known as gangstalking, is not a myth, but a reality. This is another attempt to capture its elusive nature, another attempt to grasp smoke. Nobody knows whether demons, witches, aliens, Freemasons, reptilians, God, technology, or something else is behind it. But it is real. There is a lingering sense of unseen forces working behind familiar faces. They know the thoughts of targets and let them know about it. There is either technology or psychic ability. The telepathy is there. Maybe it is tested on us or used to induce frustration and siphon energy. Energy vampires are actually well known to subtly manipulate or engage in behaviors that cause emotional distress in others, triggering a drain of energy from them. The question is whether they are simply energy-draining narcissists or if astral ticks suck lush and operate through them. If I change my inner state, for example, to feel more resilient, the gangstalker either begins creating noise or greatly increases it. I hear noisy knocking or the screeching scrape of furniture against the floor, and I am certain these noises are made on purpose. How stupid must I be? If I see patterns that are wrong, it is stupidity, not craziness. If I am 100% sure these noises are intentional, then I must be truly very stupid. We all know coincidences that feel deliberate but are not, so I think you simply consider the strange happenings described by targets to be one of them without any doubt. The noises follow me throughout the apartment, timed precisely to my thoughts and feelings. It happens again and again, and when I begin to doubt whether it is truly happening, the rate and intensity only increase. I heard the noises on my security camera recordings, so I know I am not hallucinating, and the fabled voice-to-skull technology is not being used in my case either. When you have been targeted for some time, the interactions between the gangstalker's noise and the target's thoughts or feelings become obvious. They can be read very clearly. First there are certain thoughts and feelings, and then the noises follow. They are most intense when I suspect someone particular is doing this to me, or when I think about gangstalking and write notes about it. In such situations, the noises and other harassment markedly intensify. I suspect some companies monitor the work of targets, while those targets are made unable to focus by multiple tactics, such as overwhelming talking and noises created by a gangstalking colleague. This colleague most likely also manipulates other employees against the target. Altered food is often mentioned, and I have experienced that myself. The food creates a kind of mind lag and decreases energy in a way different from a heavy lunch. Maybe all these tactics are simply used to drain energy from targets more efficiently. People believe in Reiki, the astral realm, God, and so on. So why should systematic energy harvesting be denied without consideration? I am not sure if the companies are aware of it, and it is actually their will, or if they only monitor the work and remain unaware of how they are infected. There are orchestrated situations at the workplace, leading targets to become crazy or look crazy. It's a form of harassment, but it goes beyond regular gaslighting. Every day they talked about a person who was doing things that I had done the day before. It became obvious they talked about me, so I thought my electronics were hacked and they were kind of spying on me. Later, they made it clear that they also knew my thoughts. No target knows for sure what exactly is going on. It is either physical, involving technologies like energy weapons and neural monitoring to mimic telepathy and remote viewing, or it is metaphysical, involving psychic abilities like telepathy, seeing what the target sees, and being connected to the target's feelings. I suspect the connection to the target's feelings is the most important one, as it allows the stealing of life force. Another perspective is that the technology or psychic abilities does not belong to humans, but are extraterrestrial. The group appears to operate with a hive-mind mentality. Could that be achieved by a single entity, such as a demon, a psychic, or a matrix agent possessing people without their awareness? I saw people changing their character, the way they talk and the content of it, as if turning a switch. They had a strange monologue, meant to make it obvious to me that things are not as they seem to be. There are ordinary people with eye defects caused by disease or present from birth, but some perpetrators seem to have an eye defect related to metasurveillance. It seems as though one being possessed them and causes this strange look. Are their groups organized hierarchically, with the lower ones unaware of those above them? Perhaps the lowest groups are simply people following orders, above them a secret security group, and above that a cult, demons, parasites, or extraterrestrial beings. In this way, some actions would be caused by ordinary humans, while the strangeness would come from other entities. The human harassers would be aware of their own actions, but the supernatural phenomenon, or extreme technology, would be interpreted only as manifestations of the paranoia they cause by their actions. Maybe the ordinary people are involved, but we don't know whether they are forced to do it, whether they believe they are doing the right thing, or whether they choose to do it because they gain benefits. Perhaps both targets and gangstalkers have been fooled. Everything can be fake. It is not paranoia if the fears are justified by reality. However, if many things are clearly made on purpose, it is more likely that you perceive ordinary coincidences as orchestrated. I think this could be called induced paranoia, and it is fitting to recall the famous quote, "Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not after you." If these things happen to you regularly, you are more likely to develop Truman Show syndrome, mind broadcasting delusion, or begin to believe in the Matrix. You just try to find an explanation for what is happening, but if you talk about it with professionals, you risk being labeled schizophrenic for the rest of your life. I believe people with some status should share their stories to make metasurveillance more believable and better known, because some people might still be alive today if they had known that what was happening to them actually has a name and that they are not alone in experiencing it. One lady was telling me her story about people ruining her life systematically, and I was listening carefully. But when she mentioned some details, I was sure she is crazy or dumb, and I just wanted to escape the conversation. I became a target several months later, and here I am now. Are there other targets who have read the Kyle Odom's manifesto and clearly recognize the signs of gangstalking? Although it focuses on aliens, the gangstalking aspect is evident. Many of us consider gangstalking as metaphysical, but the reptilian theory explains it just as well. You can check the document through the link I share in the description. You can choose either the 21 pages long text or the video. He believed there are extraterrestrial beings with technology millions of years ahead of ours. He was convinced they maintained a breeding stock of remote-controlled humans and that they are able to pop in and out of this reality. Was he inspired by John Carpenter's movie They Live, or were both inspired by reality itself? In 2016, he was sentenced to 10 to 25 years in prison after shooting a pastor. Kyle Odom was a very bright student, but his path to a normal life was ruined by the gangstalkers. They tried hard to make him look crazy, and they succeeded. He attempted a suicide twice before he shot the pastor. My previous video is about Tyra Spalding. She was also a victim of metasurveillance, and she also had a negative experience with a church member. She got something like a panic attack when she was going to approach him. The question is whether both she and Kyle were manipulated into believing pastors were evil, or whether the pastors truly were. Kyle claimed he saw the pastor reveal his true Martian face, but has he considered that it might have been an induced hallucination? When Tyra felt unexplainable fear toward a church representative, was it truly her intuition urging her to fall back, or was the feeling induced? Kyle shot the pastor in the head and 5 other places. The pastor survived and said, "I love the guy. He's a great young man who needs help." He certainly needed help, but not the one from a mental hospital. What do churches think about gangstalking? Do they consider it as demonic forces, or do they label targets as mentally ill? If they cannot consider gangstalking as real, I would seriously doubt their ability to believe in anything. Like God, gangstalking cannot be disproven, and it actually looks very much like a theater staged by Satan and his minions. Another perspective is that whole church is evil in itself and uses mafia-like tactics. Perhaps church creates unbelievable problems for targets, so that it becomes the only acceptable form of protection at the same time. The motives might be gaining new members and drawing energy from their attention while they are praying. Where attention goes, energy flows, right? For an open-minded person like me, God can exist, and God can be either good or bad, or perhaps even a mix of both, like us humans. So maybe God is not altruistic. Maybe God helps, but also wants something in return. Perhaps instead of God, there is a godlike, hive-minded parasitic organism in every living being on Earth, manipulating us with energy and creating miracles and psychic abilities. Or maybe there is neither God nor godlike organism, but only church offering false hopes or even causing evilness. What about Scientology? They are often blamed for being behind gangstalking. They believe that our souls, known as thetans, can control others from a distance and possess other metaphysical abilities, such as telepathy, if their level is high enough. Perhaps they have discovered something. Scientology may even be managed by other beings, offering false hope to ordinary people about godlike abilities. On the other hand, Scientologists suspect psychiatry is often corrupt and wrongly labels patients. Maybe they are the good ones being smeared. There are simply too many options to consider. Like most people, targets, including Kyle, often present their opinions as facts. I think this is one of the most serious mistakes targets can do, because it makes us even less trustworthy. Let me give you a question to test how cautious you are before becoming certain about something. If you hear voices of your current colleagues coming from your neighbor's apartment, will you consider the voices might be coming from a speaker, or will you be sure your colleagues are in that apartment because you know the voices belong to them? Here is another question. If your energy is being drained significantly when your neighbor arrives, do you assume the draining begins this way deliberately, so you suspect a wrong person? Of course, there are targets who believe they are very important, and even chosen ones. Perhaps this mindset helps them survive, but I am afraid we are just being used, and the energy harvesting system may indeed be real. Many people are targeted, and of course not all of us are smart. Getting video-based evidence of meta-surveillance, as I know it, is impossible. The videos of gangstalking may have been made by not-so-smart targets, by those who already lost their sanity, or even by the gangstalkers themselves to make targets look stupid and crazy. The only way we can prove this continuous monitoring and harassment is by monitoring our minds and surroundings simultaneously to see the interactions and patterns. How can we as targets achieve this? Perhaps with something like an EEG hat, or maybe Elon Musk's Neuralink in the future. Maybe we should ask Elon Musk for help, or maybe he is part of the group experimenting on us. Who knows? Guys, do you prefer the term meta-surveillance or gangstalking? I'm curious which language feels truer to the experiences. Let me know in the comments, please. You can also check my channel description, where I mention possibly related things. At the end, I would like to point back to Tyra. She created her videos in a way that made it clear to other targets she had lived through the same experiences. She wanted at least someone who would understand her, and we do. I am sorry it is too late. She didn't shoot anyone. She just ended her own precious life. I assure you Tyra was trying not to look too crazy in her videos and she avoided revealing many details. If you want to hear her testimony along with my opinions, you can check my previous video titled Not Mentally Ill, Metasurveillance of Tyra Spalating.